get them. Let's bring in James Island Messenger reporter Charlie Morrison. Charlie, here you are working for a small community newspaper, and you've cracked open a really big story. Are you surprised by the response you've gotten from your readers?
Well, I think people on James Island crave some kind of an independent newspaper, an independent media, to keep them informed on what's going on with town matters and with overall budgetary matters and town hall matters.
I got to tell you, your writing is terrific. I was really impressed with that. You've been in the community now for a long time. What has led the James Island residents to the point where there's so many of them that are angry at town hall?
Well, you know, that's tough to say. I think a lot of them had a lot longer relationship with the mayor than I have, and it appears that a lot of them have felt like that relationship has changed over the years.
And they've turned on it.
Yeah, it seems that way.
You've quoted in your paper the mayor saying she plans to spend all the town's money now just in case the town is overturned again in the Supreme Court. She wasn't happy with that quote, and here's what she told us.
That was a lie that little jerk wrote in that messenger paper that I already called him to task for. You know, you can't say all I know is what I read in the papers, because papers very often misquote. He put that in that piece. I did not say that.
Charlie, if you're called a jerk by the mayor, you must be doing something right.
Well, I'd like to think that if any elected official is calling you a jerk, then you're probably calling them on something they don't want to talk about.
Why are we saving the money? And we're not talking about my son now. We're talking about it's too much money. What are we saving this money for? In the hopes that we might lose and someone might take some more from us? I think we need to spend whatever is necessary to spend, because I remember that in the last town we did very little, and $3.5 million went back to others. That was our money, and I think we need to spend the money on the people.
Well, some people at the meeting I attended were calling it Clarksville. What's that reasoning all about?
Well, I think there's generally a lot of disillusionment about, you know, not necessarily Mary Clark herself, but just her methods. And I think it's, you know, she's a very strong, stubborn person.
You've got to give her good credit. 14 years ago, she started this whole idea. She led the charge to incorporate the town of James Island.
Absolutely.
It's her baby.
Absolutely, and she deserves all the credit for that. She really has been the first and foremost fighter for the town that's over the past 17 years.
A lot of people, though, were disillusioned with her parenting skills, if you will. They don't like the way it's being run now. What is it that Mayor Clark is doing differently now than she did during the incorporation process?
Well, I think in response to criticism from town members, I think she's tightened up the belt a little bit and tightened up her lips about talking about things. I think she's gotten a little bit introverted about speaking to the town directly and being proactive about communicating her intentions.
Do you think that there's a necessity for 2 more council members?
I try to stay out of that, Andy. According to the townspeople, you know, a lot of the townspeople do believe 2 more members would contribute to a greater debate, but I try not to let my opinion slip in there too much as a journalist.
Where did that come from? Were there the residents that were so upset because of the absentee council members and the ramming down of the contract that favored her son? Is that?
Yeah, well, I think with 4 council members and a mayor, if, you know, for whatever reason a council member or say 2 are absent that evening, you know, you can have a lot of actions taken that really don't speak for the council as a whole, and I think a lot of people think that if there's a greater number of council members, there's a less likelihood that that's going to happen.
You know, there's something going on out in the town of James Island that's going to affect all of us in the Low Country, and that's the McLeod plantation.
Yeah.
Obviously, the mayor wants to buy that.
Yeah.
But can the town of James Island afford to buy it? Can they afford not just the capital expense, but how are they going to maintain it?
Well, a lot of it is based on the idea that if they did drop the initial money and purchase McLeod Plantation, they could then apply for grants and other, you know, subsidized monies and afford it that way. In my research, again, I don't like to get my opinion in there too much, but I don't think they should do it for the reason that I think town services would be sacrificed if they had to pour all that money towards the purchase of the plantation.
And it looks like town services are already diminished from what the county did. A lot of people out there are very angry about the road maintenance. What do you hear on that?
Well, you know, from my point of view, it's not really about the town's desire to maintain these roads. It's about the mechanics of how they get taken care of.
And I wonder why Charleston County doesn't continue to maintain them, and I wonder why those same residents aren't down to Charleston County Council.
Well, it seems that the county decides when a municipality grows up a little bit that they want to back off their services and let the municipality take care of itself.
But the town chose not to pay the county to continue maintaining
Yeah, the
those
town
roads.
in the initial, I think, look at it said 1.5 million is too much money. We think we can do the job for less. And I think something's fallen through the cracks.
And now they have terrible roads.
Well, yeah, again, like as I said, I think the mechanics of getting these roads taken care of are not in place.
Well, we're going to keep up with this story. It's an excellent job that you did to break it. Charlie Morrison with the James Island Messenger. People might think journalism is dead, but Charlie proves it's still being done in a very important way. Do you think James Island is misspending taxpayer money? Log on to our website at c2savagereport.com and vote in our online poll. Plus, you can leave us a comment. That's our show for now. From all of us at the Savage Report, I'm Andy Savage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Clark filling in for Andy. The Savage Report investigation last spring into the town of James Island helped bring to light many of the problems inside James Island Town Hall. Now, months later, even with controversial Mayor Mary Clark out of office, that controversy continues. The town's new mayor and council members recently found Clark wrote 5 $1,000 checks to the Sea Islands Chamber of Commerce. That doesn't sound incredibly alarming until you hear that the nonprofit is a brand new organization started this summer and that Mary Clark's daughter, Karen Clark Thompson, is an executive director. The checks were all written within weeks of Mary Clark leaving office. Remember, last spring when Clark's son was awarded $75,000 worth of contracts to handle the town's website and GIS mapping. Joining us now is James Island Messenger reporter Charlie Morrison, who broke this and other stories in his coverage of the town. Charlie, how did this all come to light, beginning with the son and now the daughter?
Well, the son was awarded a contract that was voted on by members of council. So that was out in the public eye. 3 members of council, including Mayor Clark herself, decided that it was appropriate to give her son that contract, and thus he got the contract. With regards to this latest development, basically the information didn't come out until the new mayor of James Island, town mayor Bill Woolsey, took office and finally got the reins on the town's financials. He was prevented from actually getting a hold of those financials and discussing them in the public eye by the previous administration. So only in the last couple of weeks has it emerged that there was some debatable spending going on at the end of Mayor Clark's tenure.
One of the big questions is why were there 5 checks, each written for $1,000 each? Seems a little bit strange.
It does seem strange, Brendan. Basically, the mayor, as it stood in Mayor Clark's time, did have the discretionary power to spend up to $1,000 at one time without council oversight. So it does raise some alarms and raise some eyebrows that perhaps this was trying to be done under the cover of night, so to speak. That she did write 5 individual $1,000 checks and not a $5,000 check that would have had to be receive oversight from council is a little fishy.
Is it against the law?
I don't think it's against the law, Brendan. I think it's at best unethical. In addition to some other things that went on in the last few weeks of her tenure, this is something that definitely raised the eyebrows.
So what is the new mayor, Bill Woolsey, and council doing about this, if anything?
Well, on one hand, they're trying to move on and move forward and take the town forward. On the other hand, Mr. Woolsey, Mayor Woolsey, is actually trying to put together a budget for this town, given that the town didn't have a working budget at the end of Clark's tenure. I'm not sure exactly what they can and will do about it, but it's clear that it's a bit annoying at best.
You said a minute ago you're not sure if it was against the law, but is there any talk of calling in police, law enforcement of any kind to handle this?
Brendan, I haven't heard any talk about that. I think that's pushing it a little too far. I think this town wants to move on. I think this town wants to move forward. I think they want to get down to the business of governing and not dealing with the previous administration's acts.
All right, Clark wouldn't join us on the air, but told us just before the program that, quote, "Heavens no, I didn't do anything illegal." She added that the new leaders need to get to the business of governing the town and leave me out of it. Is that possible to do?
She's been there for long enough, Brendan. I don't think it is possible just to move on and make a clean break like that. especially when the town's financial state was in such disarray as she left office. The new mayor and council have a big job on their hands of getting this town's finances squared away, in addition to providing all the services that some feel weren't provided in the end of her tenure. So I don't think you can really, move forward without looking back a little bit.
All right, so we got the son, we got the daughter. Any other questionable spending from Clark's final weeks?
Yeah, unfortunately there is. The mayor actually prepaid, I'm not sure if it was the mayor itself, but the mayor's administration prepaid for a number of services, including building rent, telephone, electricity, stormwater. It makes you wonder what was going on when all those services were prepaid in advance, as opposed to being paid on a month-to-month basis as you would think they would be.
And this was prepaid to the mayor's son, is that correct?
Yeah, he actually, he was contracted to do the GIS mapping work and along with the website design. And unfortunately, he's only completed about 43%, I believe Mayor Woolsey quoted, of the GIS mapping. The website, if you go to the website, it's certainly not a jaw-dropping website, to put anything lightly.
And this money was funneled through the company of town consultant Roy DeHaven. What happened with that situation?
There's a lot of intermediaries going on here, and it's tough to get to the bottom of it, to be honest with you. I've tried very hard, and it's difficult, but there certainly are some intermediary companies that is receiving money and then dispersing it. So it's difficult to actually put your finger on who the money is going to and where exactly it's going a lot of the time.
So much for transparency on that one. Back to the $5,000 to join a chamber of commerce, as we understand. Town joins other chambers, but really not $5,000, as little as $500 a year. What does the town of James Island get for $5,000? Do we know?
We don't know. We don't know right now. It's hard to imagine they're going to get the requisite services and benefit that $5,000 you'd think would get. It's a new organization, this Chamber of Commerce, really just started this summer. As you said, Brendan, former Mayor Clark's daughter, Karen Clark Thompson, is on the executive board there.
Have you talked to the daughter?
I have, not on the record, unfortunately.
Okay, so she doesn't want to say anything on record. Mary Clark does not want to say much at all. Heavens knows, saying I didn't do anything illegal. But the problem is, I think that we've talked about before, is the situation that Mary Clark wants the new council and the new mayor to move forward, but there's so many questions from the past.
It's absolutely true, Brendan. It's hard for me to imagine that she could think that the town council and the new mayor could just move on clean and make a clean break from the past administration, given that there's so many unknowns.
What is there a different atmosphere when covering the town council and the new mayor? It's not a cloak of darkness. I'm not going to say that, but is it a lot easier?
It's easier. I have a lot of respect for Mayor Clark, and I think very highly of her. But one cannot deny that there is a new air hanging about Town Hall these days, an air of openness. It seems like the mayor is trying to express to citizens of the town, and it seems like the citizens of the town and the politically active are open to that and excited about that.
Charlie Morrison with the James Island Messenger. Stay with us. We're coming back with more on questionable spending being investigated in James Island Town Hall. You're watching The Savage Report on Comcast C2, all local, all the time. Welcome back to The Savage Report. I'm Brendan Clark, sitting in for Andy Savage. Our topic, thousands of dollars were spent by James Island Town Hall in the weeks before former Mayor Mary Clark left office in August. And now, the new mayor and council are investigating. We're here with James Island Messenger reporter Charlie Morrison, and we're going to pick it up with the Historic Preservation Committee that we reported on last spring. Charlie, tell us what it is and why the spending on this committee was so controversial.
Yeah, the Historic Preservation Committee was basically something created by former Mayor Mary Clark and headed up by her, with the non-stated goal of building up and supporting the 150th anniversary of the first shot of the Civil War, the sesquicentennial commemoration. It was something created by Mayor Clark to kind of bring James Island something beyond roads and ditches, she oftentimes said. She wanted to create something for the town that was bigger than everyday business. So she created it and funded it, and unfortunately, I don't think some of the projects that were started by Mayor Clark are going to be seen through to fruition. Excuse me.
So there was going to be a movie made, a film we made, as we understand, but how can you justify spending that money, allotting that money when the roads in James Island are in need of repair, and ditches and everything that she says we didn't need to pay attention to.
Well, you know, there's a lot of gray area there, Brendan. You know, depending on who you ask, the roads were in passable shape. Depending on who you talk to, the ditches were cleaned and maintained regularly. But again, as I said, former Mayor Clark very much wanted to give the town of James Island something beyond itself, so to speak, something that the national press and national media would grab a hold to and say, look, this is the place where it all started, and it's something we deserve to commemorate. Now, whether or not you believe that is up to you.
Has anyone seen this film?
No, not to my knowledge. Perhaps Mayor Clark has seen it. I don't believe it's actually come through all the way and been completed. I believe it was in the process of being produced right now.
We're talking about all this money, controversial money spent, when this town, James Island, doesn't even have a budget right now. Is that the first and foremost subject that they need to tackle right now, the new mayor and the new council? Yeah,
it is. And I think if you attended any of the debates or spoke to any of the mayoral candidates leading up to the August election, they would have told you that was the #1 issue. The budget basically mayor and the council could not see eye to eye on how to account and allocate for certain line items in the budget. And thus it was pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and unfortunately never completed. Now, the town can operate on a month-to-month basis. It's a little bit more time-consuming at meetings, and it's a lot more difficult to do, but it can happen. The question is, how much emphasis is the new mayor and council going to put on it? And the early results say that quite a bit of emphasis.
Yeah, they even have workshops on it, I believe. Do we have a timeline of when this needs to get done, when it should get done, or it should already have been done?
Well, yeah, Brendan, at the last meeting of council, which I believe was on the 7th of this month, the mayor introduced a new budget that he had worked himself. Being an accounting professor at the Citadel, had some background with doing something like that. So he put one together and introduced it to council. Unfortunately, he only introduced it to council a day before the meeting, and they didn't feel they had the requisite time to really plow through it and understand it in an intimate basis. Now, the next meeting of council is on September 21st, and there will be a first reading of the budget then, to be followed by a public hearing and perhaps a passage in early October, giving the town a budget and something to fall back on and lean on in the times ahead.
Another big subject, of course, is the court case for incorporation coming up. James Island forming, falling apart, kind of going back and forth. Could these recent problems that we've been talking about throughout the show hurt their cause?
Yeah, I think they could. But then again, the district court judge in this that's ruling on the case has never been overturned. I think the town's got a good chance of being upheld this time as far as the incorporation goes. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you it might not affect things. The fact that there's some controversy still swirling and a lot of gray area to do with the finances and other things related to the town. So it's certainly possible, Brendan.
Do we know when that decision will be made? Do we know when the court case and decisions like that will be made? Timeline there?
Yeah, we don't have a final day or even month on when to expect it. But I believe it's going to come before next spring. So in the next 6 months, I believe we're going to know whether or not this third incorporation of the town is going to be upheld by the court system and be able to live to fight another day.
You know, we've talked about all this spending of the Chamber of Commerce there that goes to the former Mayor Mary Clark's daughter, the prepaid in advance money to the son, about this History and Preservation Committee. Is there an auditor over there in James Island that has control over all this, that sees these numbers?
Yes, there is. And actually, I believe they just went through an audit in the past month, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure that audit's been completed and given back to the mayor. In fact, I know it hasn't, because I know it, with this new mayor, it'll be in our hands. So yeah, the audit will be done and will be completed and will be turned over to the public, and we will have a much better idea on exactly what went down.
All right, Charlie Morrison with the James Island Messenger. Thanks so much for coming by. Very good information there. We look forward to more of your coverage on this developing story, of course. And when we come back, an evening soiree to help teen parents. You're watching the Savage Report on Comcast C2, all local, all the time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Savage Report. I'm Andy Savage. Here's a Savage Report fact check for you. The town of James Island first tried to incorporate way back in 1993, then again in 2002, and then again in 2006, but the latest effort was again denied by the South Carolina Supreme Court back on June 20th. Joining us now is freelance reporter Charlie Morrison. Charlie Morrison is the one who covered the town for many years in the pages of the James Island Messenger, and probably is the one responsible for bringing down the government of Mary Clark. Charlie, it's good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me again, Andy.
If the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, are all those people out in James Island crazy?
You know, I guess you could entertain that as a possibility, and I think that is entertained as a possibility from the outside, but you know, living there for 10 years, now I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a Yankee, but I've been here 10 years and I've worked professionally.
Wait a minute now. Honesty, Yankee?
Yeah.
Does that go together?
It does go together. I believe it or not, there are anomalies out there, and I happen to be one of them. But in 10 years living here and in 3 years covering this, I've seen an evolution take place with both the people and, you know, the way it's manifested itself in these three towns. This effort, if it does go forth, and believe me, it will, the fourth effort to form a town, it's different from the predecessor, the third effort, and that being different from the second one, and so on. And each time they've tried to reform, it's grown, and they've grown a stronger case for making the town. And I think personally that each time that they've actually gotten the statute passed and they've formed a town, they've done a little bit better as far as providing services and being the municipality people want them to be.
Is that because of a change in management? Is it the new mayor who's really doing, and the buzz is they're doing a terrific job out there. Do you find that?
Yeah, you know, they are doing a terrific job. I think it's fair to say that the new management has been very, very good, and they've done a lot of good things. Now, I'm not going to say that the previous management didn't do a lot that led to this. A lot of the groundwork was laid by Mary Clark and her administration. Now, that being said, these guys have really taken it and run with it. Public Works, Councilman Carter McMillan and others have really taken the lead on that, and you know, ditches are getting clean. People are, you know, their responses are being attended to. Crime has been dealt with largely through the efforts of Councilman Karen Wilder Smalls, who's kind of spearheaded the neighborhood watch efforts. You know, zoning's been a little bit better. Just general town management has been better under Woolsey's administration, just organizing the town. And frankly, over the past 7 or 8 months, things have been getting done over there.
Charlie, it sounds to me like you've changed your position. Last time you and I got together talking about the town of James Island, you weren't too big on it.
Well, yeah, you know, it's hard to get your real personal opinion in there when you're covering it so closely, but you know, I've often questioned whether, you know, as you question the mayor, whether there was a duplication of services and whether it was, you know, efficient or not. But, you know, in my years covering this thing, I've really come to appreciate the desire of these people for self-determination. I mean, these folks want their own government. They want to be a part of the decision-making process, and they don't feel that they're treated with reverence as they should in any bigger form of government, whether it be city or county.
You know, what is the deal with Mayor Riley? It almost seems personal with him and trying to put down the will of the people on James Island. What is his objection to the town? Is it political? Is it personal? Or is it meritorious?
I think it's political. I think
Really?
he wants the growth of the city of Charleston. I think there's a lot that James Island has to offer the city of Charleston if it was fully incorporated into the city. I think the tax dollars, obviously, we know go up.
What about the Queen of James Island? You keep up with her? Mary Clark?
Yeah.
What is she doing these days?
Well, she's got a number of side projects. She actually put down her history studies to pick up the civic activity that she did back in the 90s and 2000s there. And I do keep up with her, despite, you know, a lot of people's opinion that we are continually at odds with one another.
Well, you disagree with her on some of the decisions she made, but you have been a big supporter of hers all the way through.
Well, you know, supporter is one word I wouldn't quite use, but I'm a fan of hers. I find her interesting. I find her a nice woman. Now, her methods and her actions have been oftentimes doubtful.
But did you keep up? You're the one who started, so did you keep up with the criminal investigation?
Yeah, I did. You know,
I mean, you had a self-interest in that, and I don't mean that personally, but you had a self-interest for your position in informing the public of what was going on out there.
Yeah.
And I know that she was under a lot of scrutiny by law enforcement. She's been cleared.
Yeah. Well, we
must have been her attorney.
It must have been her attorney. She has a number of good ones that are friends of hers. But, you know, I kind of snickered throughout that whole thing, knowing what I knew about the entire situation. And yeah, there were some irregularities there. We're not going to make any bones about that. But I didn't think they had much on her.
No, because, I mean, Mary Clark, if anything, was never interested in herself.
No.
It was always to promote the town. Is that not true?
It is true in my mind. But then again, this last decision she made to send the five $1,000 checks to the recently formed Sea Island Chamber of Commerce, in which her daughter was, that was a little fishy. You know, it was against. It didn't strike me as normal Mary.
Probably not a good idea.
But overall, I think the woman's heart was in the right place, and you know, she's staying active on the island. You'll see her around,
and she'll be leading the reincorporation in town number 4.
Yeah, I doubt that. I doubt that. She was pretty smitten, not smitten, but annoyed by the way this recent election went down. She believed she had the hearts and minds of James Islanders still. And I think she was a little disillusioned about, you know, the town's collective opinion of her leadership towards the end.
And Charlie, the word is that she's going to make a comeback. She's coming back strong. She's going to reincorporate the town one more time, and she's going to run again. Is that true?
I'd be shocked. I would be shocked. But then again, you can never be shocked when it comes to Madam Mary Clark.
Well, freelance reporter and our good friend, Charlie Morrison, thanks so much for stopping by.
It's been a pleasure, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Remember to vote on our online poll should James Islanders do it once again and try to form the town for the 4th time. Or is it time to call it quits? You can vote at c2savagereport.com. That's our program for now, and thanks so much for joining us every week. We also need to thank the National Academy for Television Arts and Sciences for these 2 terrific Emmy Awards honoring the Savage Report for our work. We were the only low-country station and the only low-country program to receive these honors, and we couldn't have done it without our incredible staff. Executive producer and my good friend Dan Crossy, director Ellie Whitcomb, associate producer, my wife Cheryl Savage, and program director Charlie Thompson at Comcast C2. Our general managers Bill Watson and all the videographers Jan Maddow and Keenan Nelson. Here's to another great year ahead with the best television audience in the Lowcountry. Don't forget our sponsors either. Mr. Baker out there at Baker Motors and John and Linda Derbyshire down at Moneyman. Thanks so much for all you do to help us. And thank you too for joining us. We'll see you next week.